Cathy doing so.
Thanks, and morning everyone. My name is Shriga, we have super early this morning, so thanks for coming. Right.
Let the baby go.
And in a very typical Cathy style, at 3 a.m. last night, I thought, should I get fever sleep or should I prep? And I think I might have chosen a few more hours of sleep. So this is total freestyle, improvise, morning keynote. But to start with, I'd love to know which ones among you are heading to the Blue Zone later today. No? All Green Zone? No. Cool. And which ones among you are involved or following the UNFCCC negotiations? Interesting. Great. Then it will be fun for you to stay. And we'd love also to know which ones among you have experienced bias or discrimination because you like your age, being a currently or previously young professional in the your workspace, or other sorts of discrimination because of neurodiversity or because, for example, you move your side gigs too much. Anyone? You all have amazing employers. Okay. I just said this to the Green Zone, but you can be honest if you want. But to start with, having to share a bit more about my journey. For me, I started in the UNFCCC space when I was a teenager. First started in youth advocacy in the policy process of the convention, and then realized, wow, I actually really love it. And realized maybe I love it too much for it to be a side gig, and just sort of never left. And over the years, I've advised about 8 UN agencies and various international organizations, civil society organizations, but my day job has been a bit of a journey of pivoting. I started in the practice sector, investment banking, and then consulting professional services, which a former employer may or may not have a booth over there, in case any of you walk past later today. And then I realized, actually, what I really want to do is in the multilateral process. So then I shifted to a multilateral initiative that is adjacent to this process. And then realized, damn, I am an NGO person at heart. So finally, here we are. I have an NGO job. Woo! Welcome, you folks. And so that's a bit about myself. And I realized for me, it's all about building synergies across the silos, processes, and an international space, but also in my work itself. It's about bringing different stakeholders together, whether it's businesses, governments, NGOs, IGOs. It's really about helping those folks who speak very different languages and think very differently to come together and to collaborate, to really understand each other in an equitable way. So that's a bit about myself. And when I was saying the reason that I stayed on in this process all these years, not that many years, it's really because I love the people in this space. And also, I think I was lucky to some extent that when I first started, for years I was working with a few graduates to try to push forward the first ever seat at the UN Climate-Related Advisory Board for young people, for women and gender representatives, and the second seat for indigenous people within local communities, mainly indigenous peoples. And we worked hard for it for years, and thought this is something that needs consensus by all member states, which is close to 200 countries. And my favorite former lead negotiator of a country used to say, described that the challenges, the complexity of this process is, imagine almost 200 friends trying to come together and decide what to have for dinner tonight. And that essentially is the complexity of the space. Yes, there are so many incredible governments and negotiators who try to do their best and who fight for what they believe in and trying to make the process as ambitious as possible. But of course, there are also ones who simply don't believe in what we believe in. Some of them might not understand, or simply don't see that as a priority to empower young people to recognize their leadership, their talents, and some of them are not into gender equality, and some of them would not like to recognize indigenous rights. There are, serious challenges in the space. So for years I thought, wow, trying to push for the first seat for young people and the gender representative and the second seat for indigenous peoples would be such a cool thing, and it's worth fighting for despite the chances are low. So it's worth trying. And we worked hard for it for years together with my dear sister, Ibrahim, and 2 other activist friends. And then finally, Glasgow, COP26, the last cold COP, also with a similar setting. It was difficult negotiations, I have to say, but magically, thanks to the leadership of many countries, and including a Nordic country who had to give up on something else they wanted, and the leadership of countries. I name countries in the Green Group in a positive way, but Japan, US, Norway, EU, Mexico, they're really a big crowd and spread across all continents, but also the ones who have a lot of money and the ones who are suffering from climate crisis the most. I was really impressed by how most people came together to support this idea that essentially as a government does not give them direct benefits, right? This is something that they're handing their power to the civil society stakeholders instead of, we're actually taking money from as a government, or we're getting direct reputational benefits as a government. So I was really impressed that there was just tremendous support from these countries, which was super helpful because a few other countries were, how do I put this, not big fans of the idea. But yeah, so I think it was, I want to say 11th of November, or it was the final day of negotiation, and both came together and decided, you will have the seats. So that's how it came to reality. And I remember when it got gavels, for minutes I was like, maybe I misheard, how could negotiation be so difficult for so long, and then all of a sudden got gaveled through. And I think that's the magic of this space, and that's one of the messages I really want to leave everyone with is, yes, this process can seem really complicated, and sometimes you feel powerless, or as an individual, this is at the end of the day, the convention is a party, i.e. State government process. As an individual, what are the things that you can really make a difference for? And I think this is whenever I feel really frustrated with a process or with a job. This is what creates me hope, essentially, the process that I believe, and I think, what we did in the past make me believe that no matter how likely it seems, it is worth having faith in the process and believe in your power to make change. And it doesn't matter if you were a teenager or you're a civil society activist, that as long as you try really hard and really follow your heart, I would say, and that's what matters. And then it's about collective efforts. So please believe in your power as an individual and collectively to drive change. That's the first message that we're leaving you with. And then let's talk about other challenges. I think to some extent I have been very lucky so far with a daily job I really love and with sun gigs and in this convention process that I love the most. But there have been, of course, challenges. I know perhaps the crowd we're getting today are all very lucky people that really don't enjoy your previous or current day jobs, and you never, and most of you might not have experienced bias or discrimination because of your age or other things in your workplace. But there's so many friends of mine, and especially the ones I admire the most in the process, the ones who bring me so much energy, and the ones that they're such badass, such incredible force of change in the space. And it's unfortunate that so many of them face similar challenges. And I think what struck me the most is I rarely heard them talking about it in the space publicly. You would hear people talking about gender equality, yes, it's super important. But you really hear that in our space, it exists a lot in the private sector space, but in our space, when I first started talking about my neurodiversity, which is a late diagnosis, I only got diagnosed after after I started working for maybe like 2 years. And growing up, I'm born and raised Chinese, and growing up, I never thought I had neurodiversity. I just thought I'm a lazy, distracted person who sometimes do well in exams, but always is, on the edge. Am I gonna pass the mark? Am I not gonna make it? It's always a gambling. And I thought, oh, that's just me. I'm just lazy. But I've learned to live with it. And then when I was 20-something, and I was working, a colleague was like, oh my gosh, my last employer paid for my neurodiversity test. And I was like, her behaviors are a lot like mine. And at some point we were like having coffee, and she's like, you should probably get tested. And I started thinking about it, and I was like, probably not. I don't want to try to be vulnerable or, and I have to finish all my exams, so if I get a 25% extra time, I wouldn't be able to use it. But then the more I think into it, the more I'm like, actually, because this makes a lot of sense, and my certain types of behaviors, how I leave everything to the last minute, it's like, maybe I should get tested. So I live in the UK, and I signed myself up to the NHS, which is the National Healthcare System. Long waiting list, and I'm still waiting for parts of my diagnosis years later. But the rest parts were diagnosed, and turned out I do have neurodiversity. So I started thinking about it and talking about it, and I think I was surprised that so many folks in the space are really supportive. And also, I think what struck me is there's so many incredible youth activists and other activists in the space who, again, I'm not a doctor and I'm not a professional, but I'm like, wow, that is what I would think a typical neurodivergent behavior, or this eager to try and change and the energy that they bring. But most of them, not everyone is like me, have a national healthcare system that could slowly support that. And I know that many people never realize that. And obviously, neurodiversity tests and the diagnosis process was originally built based on tests of white boys, right? And you're a white boy. And kids, they still give like, maybe you should get tested. But growing up, that no one thought that I should get tested. And I think that that's what happens to so many folks in our space, and also knowing that many, where they live might not have a healthcare system that could cover that. But saying that just to encourage everyone, if you feel like you're procrastinating like I do, maybe it's worth looking into. And after I got diagnosed, I was really happy. I thought, wow, this is such a superpower I have, and I'm quite happy with it. Like, if I have ADHD, I'm quite happy with how my brain works. If other people are not happy, then that's kind of their problem to deal with. So sorry to my colleagues. But then there are also being challenges, and I am not blaming any employers or colleagues I've worked with, but over the years, there have been times where a senior colleague would say, oh, so you got diagnosed? So what have you done to overcome it so it doesn't impact your work? And that was a very senior person who directly managed me. And I thought, well, that's really odd, because usually how it should work is when you get diagnosed, your employer would then explore how they could support you, because that's their obligations. And then there were other things like, so you have neurodivergence, but you never talk about it. Or so you have neurodivergence, but you talk about it all the time. Or things like, you have neurodiversity, that's really bad thing. As if, I don't know, that I'm not qualified to do a job because of neurodiversity. So there are all sorts of biases that I see principals experience. And that comes to my seconds. That's just really what it is. Please believe in yourself, but at the same time, if you feel like, I procrastinate a lot, get tested or start reading the webcom websites. And the third thing I want to talk about is linked to that. Is it 1 minute or 4? Okay, perfect. And the third thing, which is the last thing that I want to talk about, is floodgates. And as you know, over my journey, I'm always obsessed with civil society advocacy in the UN and climate processes. But at the same time, there's a lot of pushback from employers. And I think I see the same from the most talented young people I work with. I know many of you come from still study, or at least supposed to look pretty young. And I think for me, I was so shocked that the most talented friends of mine, some of them late in their career, in their 50s, when they received such comments from their state line manager, they would doubt themselves, and then some of them would come to me and cry and be like, oh my gosh, is it me? And I'm like, clearly it is not you. But then I realized I was in a similar situation. So that's my last message to leave you all with is, please, again, believe in yourself, be rebellious, and like a good friend of mine used to say, who is actually in my head state, that keep pivoting in your career. If at some point you're not loving your job as you once were, or you deserve, then keep pivoting. And yeah, believe in yourself and believe in your power to write change. And also be looking forward to meeting some of you in the process of this pitch, especially around bridging silos and bringing stakeholders together. So thank you a lot, everyone, and I will hand the mic back to Adam.